Hello all. This particular lecture is about the vernacular architecture of Kashmir. Kashmir is the northernmost geographical region of the Indian subcontinent. The culture of Kashmir is highly influenced by Northern, South Asian, Persian, as well as Central Asian culture. Along with its scenic beauty, Kashmir is famous for its cultural heritage. It amalgamates Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, and Buddhist philosophies and has evolved a composite culture based on the values of humanism and tolerance, which is collectively known as Kashmirian. This The people of Kashmir, they had their origin from various places, and over a period of time they got settled over here. As a result, the culture or the tradition followed here is a blend of various regions, and finally they all together form the community of Kashmiriat. The landscape of the region follows the Jhelum River. The Jhelum River is the main uh, influencing factor which determines the settlement pattern of this particular Kashmir. So initially the settlements were along the stretch of the Jhelum River, and later from this stretch it got radiates over the other areas. Settlements are established some distance away on the steep slopes of the adjacent mountains. So it starts from the riverfront of this particular region, and it spreads all over the other area. Basically, one important factor about this Kashmir is it is surrounded by mountains on all the sides. Regarding the occupation, agriculture is the occupation of the most of the people. They were also involved in making artifacts and artistic works. And very important fact or very important factor of this particular region is this region is prone to earthquake and landslides. This is the major influencing factor which affects the architecture of the dwelling units of this particular region. The climate of the Valley of Kashmir has its own peculiarities. The seasons are marked with sudden change. In this slide, the seasonal changes are marked. So, if we see from 16th March to 15th May, we can witness the spring season in that particular region. The valley becomes a blanket of emerald green grass. In spring, showers are frequent. So, frequent showers will happen in the spring season, and followed by this will be the summer from 16 May to 15 July. So at this time the mountains are dark blue in color with snow capped peaks, clear streams, cool springs, beautiful lakes, and pine forest. Thunderstorms cool the air on excessive heat during June. So this summer will be like in the daytime, there will be more heat. We can experience the heat in that region, and in the evening, obviously, the temperature gets down, and we can witness the experience the cool breeze. In the next from 16 July to 15 September is the rainy season. So at this particular time, the valley receives rainfall with the dark clouds touching the mountains. July and August witness showers but are not frequent. So in July and August, the showers will be of intermittent type. Followed by that is from 16 September to 15 November is autumn. In this particular time period, the temperature begins to fall in the daytime, and in the nights it become very cool. This will be followed by the same kind in October and November. And further, from 16 November to 15 January, we can experience the winter. This starts by receiving snowfall, making it pleasant. In the end of the December, heavy snowfall will start. So, at the end of or the late November, it starts by late November, and by it ends almost by late mid of March. So, mid of March, we can witness the snowfall in this particular area. So, by January to March, it gets very severe snowfall. Uh, at that time, it will be the intense cold makes winter a very harsh climate for common people and animals. So, intense cold prevails till February. So, all these terms are the local terms for representing these particular seasons of the region. And regarding the settlement pattern, the streets here locally termed as mohallas. So the settlement pattern will be of two types. Either it will be based on the occupation or it will be based on the clan. So, as more and more members of the family became associated with traditional crafts and skills, mohallas developed as a close-knit community. So, if they are doing a particular type of traditional craft or they are relating to some kind of artwork, then they all together form a community and they form the settlement in a particular location like that. So, another type will be based on the family members, like similar clan type. They all form together and they create a settlement. Similarly, clan or family based mohallas also grew in the core areas. So these people they all always occupy the main town or the core area of the region. Apart from the dwelling units, ziyarats, temples, and shrines became the focal points around which large habitations were established. Worship places became the center of settlements. So once if there is any a new worship place raised, so keeping that as a focal element, the surrounding area will be fully occupied by the dwelling units. The riverfront and the areas along the canals like Nalamar witnessed a continuous array of houses with projecting wooden balconies, intricate lattice work, and window screens facing the waterfront. So initially, this Jhelum River is the only source for the transportation or the only medium through which they had their movement from one place to another. So this resulted in development of ghats. So a significant urban future of the waterfront was in the form of ghats. The ghats served as landing places for the transportation. So initially, their transportation was only through this Zeelam River. So the dwelling units were placed along this river stretch. So all the dwelling units will be having the river front, and these river fronts, they facade or this particular skin of the elevation, they started decorating more elaborately with wood. Next, we are going to see about the architecture of the dwelling units. The architecture of Srinagar, with its steeply pitched gable roofs atop brick and wooden structures, reminds one of the medieval European city. So, the overall picturesque image that got that we see in this particular region that reminds us the European medieval city, medieval European city type of architecture or type of character. So here in this picture we can see the old and the new one. So still the character remains the same. It is still alive and lived in as it has been for centuries. In vicinity are a mixture of buildings built and rebuilt over the last 300 years in a compatible style, and with its economy based on handicrafts and carpet weaving, Srinagar never had the local wealth necessary to undertake a massive rebuilding of the city. So, since their occupation was mainly of agriculture and other art and artifact making kind of works, so their economy is very poor. So, for that reason, they cannot rebuild the whole city or reimagine and bring new dimension to the city. But these people are more affected by the natural forces like the earthquake and landslides very frequently. For that reason, what they used to do is they used to keep changing or repairing some of their parts of the houses, and they will redesign according to the present condition. Or next, based on the method of construction, the dwellings were of. So we are dividing the dwelling types based on their construction method. So that is the four types: Gujar's house, that is the first type, and second will be the rural houses in village, and third will be the urban houses in town, and fourth will be the houseboats. In this particular lecture, we are going to see in detail about the urban houses and the houseboats. Architecture of urban houses. The traditional buildings are of two categories on the basis of plan form: square plan and the linear plan. So these traditional buildings they can be categorized into two types, either based on their platform, either it will be of square or linear. These dwellings were occupied by joint families. Mostly they were square in plan, having windows on all sides. So mostly the people who reside here they prefer the square type of plan. The reason behind that is the distribution of function is symmetrical. Symmetry is the basic principle for earthquake resistant structures. So one of the reason is the square form will obviously help the structure to resist against the earthquake, and also this square plan along with the square plan, they gone for the symmetrical arrangement of the functional spaces, so that again lead them to very easy distribution of load in the structure, and ultimately achieve a very good seismic resistant structure. The main entrance opening into a centrally located staircase lobby. The space underneath the centrally located staircase is used as a storage space. So once if we enter the flight of steps and we reach the plinth level or the ground floor level of the house, it will be leading us to a common space or a common court space. From this common court space, we will be accessing the staircase, which is the vertical transition element of the house. So mostly it will be located in the center, so that the space on both sides will be equally distributed. And usually the central court will be having spaces on both sides. So in this case here we can see this is the living area and this is the bedroom. And apart from that, they always place the kitchen and bath very next to each other. The reason behind that is, during bath they used to have the steam bath. So for that purpose, as a kind of sustainable approach, what they used to do is the hot gas from the cooking of the kitchen, using some pipes, they direct this hot gas to the bath, so that they can get a very easy steam bath inside the bathroom. So this is a kind of practice that existed in this particular region. Ground floor houses the heated living room with cooking and dining areas. Mostly the cooking, dining and living will be associated or very adjacent to this kitchen, to have the warmth of that heat produced from the cooking. So for that reason they have this spaces adjacent. A part of the lobby on the first floor is usually converted into a smaller room over the main entrance on ground floor. This in some cases also encloses a projecting wooden bay window called tub. So in the ground floor they have a bedroom, and in the first floor it will be completely of full of bedrooms, and they will be having a common lobby space, and from the lobby they will be that will be leaded to the bedrooms, and in some cases they may have some living area like that. Another interesting feature or important element of this particular type of dwelling unit is this balcony projection. Usually, some space will be associated with this balcony projection, and this balcony is intended for the people to enjoy the beauty of moon during the night time. So, for that purpose, as these houses were along the river front, so along the river they have to enjoy the beauty of the moon. So, for that purpose, they project a balcony like provision. They have projected a balcony like element, and from that they have their connection with the outside world or to the nature. Topmost floor is a large room with many windows. Traditional use of this room is during summers in order to take advantage of cool breeze. Also used for gatherings and social events. In winters used for storage. So apart from the ground floor, first floor, and in case if they had the second floor with bedrooms, they have a very topmost floor. The topmost floor is used in a multi-purpose way. During the summer, in the evening time, the people spend their time there so that they can get a cool breeze over there and enjoy the space. But in the winter, the space has been used for completely storage. So, in case of any functions or gatherings that can happen in that place, the single space that has been used in a multi-purpose way. The WC is usually, or the toilet is usually detached from the house and set in the corner of the front court, while the bathroom usually consists of small room next to the hot water tap behind the kitchen stove. So usually the toilets will be kept outside, either in some corner, so that the total function won't get affected by this. Internal divisions consist of thinner partition walls, often of wattle and daub, made from timber framing, infilled with reeds and plastered with a mix of mud and animal dung. So this is a very common practice that can be seen in almost all the houses. The outer wall of the overall square is constructed as a heavy stone masonry wall for both structural and climatic purposes. Traditionally, windows being closed with two set of shutters, inside being of solid wood, outside with a jali and open filigree of carved wood. So typically the windows will be having a two type of shutters, one with the jali type of opening, another with the solid wood type of shutter. So once if we want both the privacy and we want the lighting and the ventilation to be happen inside the space, then we can use this particular shutter. Or if we want to completely shut off, then we can use that solid shutter kind. Oiled newspaper was glued onto the jolly shutters to admit light into the house during winters. So during winters, along with the shutters, they use some oiled newspaper so that they will get only the light into that particular space. The building type conserves energy by reducing air infiltration through windows by insulation in the thick earth, roof and wall. So each and every element and and the construction type of this particular dwelling types, they have gone for a very successful seismic resistance and also a kind of sustainable approach towards their design and practice. In some of the cases, the lower level consists of a masonry platform which may be occupied by animals and for grain storage. Clear height will be 8 to 9 feet. Upper floors have high ceiling. So this is a case in case since this area is surrounded by fully of mountains. Some of the mountains were very steep, and to have dwelling units there, once if they select the site and they make a flat surface for their dwelling unit. Obviously, while making the flat surface, digging out the earth, there will be some negative space or some odd space we will be getting. So as a result, what they used that particular odd space for either grain storage or for having the animals there, and effectively used that particular negative space to be incorporated into their building. And this particular slide is about the elements of the vernacular architecture that has been practiced in this dwelling type. Next is about the materials of construction. Basically, all these materials are very easily and locally available material. So that is their prime concern. Based on that, only their construction types or construction typologies were designed. So stone is the base material that has been used very extensively in this type of architecture. Uh, Either up to the plinth level or till the ground floor, they will be using this heavy stone walls that will be of very thick. And this is a very important design consideration to make this building a seismic resistance one. And next will is the usage of wood. So timber structures have high resistance to earthquakes. Timber is an organic material and their cellulose fiber makes them highly effective under tensile stresses. So in all the buildings, they either go for a combination of stone with wood or brick with wood. So wood has been a very predominant material for this region. Also, their construction type will be like the very bottommost part will be of very strong stone, and after that, for the above the superstructure will be of fully wood, and the topmost superstructure will be of wood with the combination of brick, and the topmost floor will be of completely wood. So as the height increases, the weight of the material and the weight of the building should decreases. Obviously, the lightweight construction on the above floors enhance them to resist the seismic forces. And next is the mud and cow dung. So the bonding materials used for masonry is a mixture of mud and cow dung, which has adequate bonding properties with stone and brick. If we take both the stone and the brick, they go very well with the bonding. The bonding will go very well with the mud and cow dung. So for that reason, they have used this extensively. And next is about the construction methods. So in total, there are two construction methods followed here. First one is Daji Diwar, and second one is about the talk system. In Dajidivar type of construction, the Dajidivar is a much thinner and lighter form of wall construction. It consists of timber framing with infills of brick. In few cases, the infill will be of stone masonry. Basically, this construction type is all about having a frame of wood and having in between struts with wood. This void spaces will be filled with either brick or stone, and finally it will be plastered with the combination of cow dung and mud. So this is the first type of construction method that has been followed very extensively there. So in this type, the walls will have greater ductility and damping. So this is the advantage of this particular type of construction. In addition to this, the horizontal and vertical cage formed by the timber are braced diagonally against shear. This cross member is usually at the corner but lends the entire framing resistance against shear. So the system will be like they will be having the vertical timber structures and horizontal timber structures all through the building. It will be spread like this. So instead of constructing this as a single element, this will be like splitted into units all together forming a single holistic structure. So in this very particular, in the edges and the corners, what they used to do is introduce the cross bracing. So only in the corners they used to do this. So this will avoid the effect of shear force acting on this particular structure. The closely placed timber studs prevents propagation of shear cracks. So here we can see some of the examples. So all these are like proven methods for this type of construction. So these type of bracings will obviously result in a successful seismic resistance design. This framing also results in breaking up the upper level masonry walls into smaller multiple panels, each of which are independent. So as a result, what happens? The collapse of any one panel will not result in the complete collapse of the wall and therefore the structure. So in case of any problem with a single panel or any collapse with this single panel, this won't affect the remaining structure. So the overall structure will behave very good in this seismic resistance. Small masonry panels surrounded by timber elements have greater safety against out of plane collapse. So, as instead of having a very big single plane, so this will act as a more of a smaller planes all together forming a single plane. So the next type is the construction type of construction is the TOC system. The principal features of these systems are in the system of construction 2 feet 6 inches to 3 feet thick brick masonry piers supporting wooden floor beams form the basic structural system of the building. The distance between the two brick piers used to be normally around 3 feet to 4 feet and was known as the TOC system. The TOC thus formed the basic structural bay of the building. The gap in between each stock will be filled in with either a window opening or brick masonry. Normally, the inner facing of the structure would be made of sun-dried brick or rubble infill. The superstructure usually rested on a 3 feet to 4 feet high stone plinth constructed in a random rubble masonry. A series of twin wooden, mostly this will be of deodar wood. Twin wooden tie beams known as the DAS or the plinth will be called as a DAS there, separated the stone masonry from burnt brick masonry of the superstructure and acted as an isolated diaphragm in between the two layers. In many cases, the ground floor was also constructed in random rubble masonry. The superstructure thus behaved as a framed structure, which accounts for considerable success that these buildings exhibited in withstanding the earthquakes. So, how the system works is basically up to the plinth, we will be having a very strong random rubble masonry of structure. So up to the plinth it will be of a base of stone, and after that they introduce this twin beams of wood. So that is they have mentioned here, that is the DAS, the plinth beams. So along the outer periphery wall these twin beams will be introduced, and for the inner area two beams will be introduced. So this is the plinth beams, and after this they start constructing the brick walls in the periphery. So very important thing is if they want a very solid wall they will construct that as a solid one, or else they introduce the brick piers here. So this will be like 3 feet to 2 feet 6 inches to 3 feet thick brick masonry piers. So this will be raised above this wooden beam, and it will be continuing all through the floors. So in between the gap, that will be filled with either windows or it will be filled with brick wall. So if we want have more light and ventilation, then they introduce this wooden windows and doors like kind, or else it will be filled with the bricks. So depending upon the requirement, it will happen. So this is about the outer periphery, and in the inner periphery from these two beams they introduce two vertical columns, and again a beam will run, so that on above this they start introducing the wooden rafters. So this wooden rafters will be covering the whole area, and above that they will lay the wooden planks, and that will become the floor of the first floor. So again this same process continues, and on the topmost floor what they used to do is, so an interesting feature of many such buildings is the absence of truss system supporting the roof. So there is no any truss kind of elements or truss kind of system that is supporting the roof. The roof comprises a layer of earth covering over birch bark and wooden planks resting on wooden rafters. So above the wooden rafters, what they used to do, they will cover that wooden rafters with wooden planks, and above that they will spread the birch bark, and above that they will be spreading a layer of earth, and above that will be the roof. So this is the kind of construction that they followed in that region. The rafters in turn supported on a wooden log running along the entire length of the building. This wooden log was supported on load bearing masonry piers. So from the wooden rafters it will come to the wooden beams or wooden logs, and from the wooden beams it will be transferred to the piers, and from the piers to the very base, the stone masonry or what kind of masonry they have gone for, that will be transferred to the base. So most of the internal walls were usually 4 to 6 inches thick. In many of the larger buildings, the ceiling would be supported on a centrally placed wooden log running along the length of the building. So this we can see here in the center. For the center support, they have given vertical columns, and it has been followed in all the floors, so that the central area will also have that load distribution. So from the beams to the columns and again to the beams, it will be transformed. In many of the, projecting floor joist would be used to support bay windows known as the dubs. As I have said earlier, there will be some projecting balcony kind of structures to enjoy the nature or to enjoy the outside world from being inside. So that is for that case they have projected these kind of structures. The structural system seems to have died out in the early part of the 20th century when load-bearing brick masonry became popular. So, after the introduction of the load-bearing structures with the brick, this system has eventually disappeared. Also, the manufacture of Maharaji brick seems to have stopped. So, this Maharaji bricks is nothing but very small bricks. As we can see in this picture, it is not like the conventional bricks. It will be of a smaller size. That is specially made for this particular region, and it will be very good for using as a filling material. In the previous system, what we have seen is like for the timber frames filling, they will be using a brick. For that filling, it will be very useful. So over a period of time, this type of small size of bricks manufacturing got stopped. So this is all about the architectural details or architecture, vernacular architecture of the dwelling units of the Kashmir. And further we are going to see in detail about the Dunga houses, that is the boat houses of the Kashmir. So the evolution of the boat houses, like in the initial stage, it was a four-pillared pavilion with a bamboo roof. Traders used small shikaras to transport the household items, vegetables, goods, and for a commercial activity. So initially, the first stage of evolution of this particular type of boat houses, it was used only for the transportation of goods. So it will be having a small with a four bamboo poles like thing that will be covered with a shelter. So depending upon the type of goods that has to be transported from one area to the other, the structure will be there. And in some cases it will be like a central pavilion kind thing. So under that the rulers or the person who have the higher hierarchy will be traveling in this. So initially it was used by the traders for the purpose of transport. And later during the Mughal period, it was used for it was used by the king and their people for excursion or spending time during the summer like that. So they for that purpose they used these kind of bunga boats. And after that, during the British period, earlier British had no right to live on land in Kashmir. Houseboats were mainly constructed for them to stay. So at the time of this British period, they were purposefully avoided to not stay here. That no person can own any land in Kashmir. So for that reason, they have started developing these boat houses. And as a later period, in the later period, this got transformed or this got evolved. And what we see in the present scenario is the fine-tuned version of this boat houses. So initially it was for the dwelling purposes, and now it has been converted to as a tourist spots and tourist purpose. So this particular picture is inside of the bunga type of boat. So people residing over there with some background of how the interiors has been like that. So later they improvised these water dwellings on the lakes of Kashmir in the year 1888. These boats are common in Dal Lake, Nagin Lake and in Jhelum River. So it was the modern tourism that popularized this Kashmir's boat house. So if we see about the very basic planning or the prototype of this particular boat houses, so if we take this planning, so initially it will be having a front deck that will be leading to a veranda space, and from the veranda they will be having a living cum dining, and from the living they will be able to access this bedroom area. And these boats they had only the kitchenette. It's like a pantry area. Only serving will be done there. So for cooking, initially they had a very small boat along with this boat. So the cooking will be done here and they will be transferring to this area. So there will be two boats traveling all along the path. So on that case they had two boats serving for two different purposes. So the outer walls were made of bamboo mats using bamboo poles, and the outer structure framework will be formed. The topmost roofing will be using the slate material. So using the slate material, the roofing were done. The front veranda leads to living and dining area. This further leads to bedroom. Adjacent to living area is the kitchenette. The houseboat was accompanied by a small boat which was mainly used for the cooking purpose. So depending upon the requirement, the rooms will be added. So some of the boats are ladders leading to the upper deck area. Initially, the boats were moving, and later some became static houses in the water. So, in the initial stages, it was moving along the river. For that purpose, they have constructed those type of boat houses, and later, and in the present scenario, more boat houses are like static. So we can have separate boats to access that particular boat. So this boat building in Kashmir is an ancient craft that has been passed down from one generation of master craftsmen to the next. The craftsmen themselves would go for the selecting suitable deodar tree. So almost all the boats they opt for this deodar tree, and the craftsman he himself go and select the tree. So after selection, they would split the entire tree in half length ways with an axe. So these halves were then trimmed into a required thickness and hauled behind the boat for several miles on watercourse. So for seasoning, they will be using almost some 2 3 years. They will take 2 to 3 years. They will take time for seasoning of these wood, and after that they will be using this for the boat construction. So the trunks of 20-meter length were used to construct the sides of the boat. The fabrication was generally carried out on a dry flat piece of ground. So this period of utility will be minimum of 4 years. So this is again another plan showing the boathouse detail. So here we can see some series of rooms very next to each other. So it has a very that is the ground level or the base level and the top level. So here we can see some ladder. So it may be of a temporary ladder. So through which they can access this upper deck area. So with this, I'm concluding this particular lecture. So this slide I have attached the references for the details that can be read regarding this Kashmir vernacular architecture of Kashmir and the architecture of the boat houses. Thank you.